Mr. Beat presents Presidential Elections in American History. The 42nd presidential election in American history took place on November 4th, 1952. Oh, Harry. He had managed to get the country into another war. But now the United States military was acting as the leading force for an organization Truman had helped start, called the United Nations. UN forces arrived to help defend South Korea after communist North Korea invaded them. This was back in 1950. 2 years later, the conflict dragged on as a stalemate. Truman called it just a police action, but today we know it as the Korean War. Even though the war still gets glossed over, tens of thousands of Americans died in it, and Truman's popularity declined the longer it continued. Senator Joseph McCarthy's anti-communist attacks and the revelation of widespread corruption of federal employees also hurt Truman's approval rating so much that he hesitated to run for re-election. He cautiously proceeded, though, trying to talk Adlai Stevenson II to run. Stevenson was the governor of Illinois and the grandson of former Vice President Adlai Stevenson I. But Stevenson was like, meh, I really don't want to be president that much. And the populist Estes Kefauver, a senator from Tennessee, became a leading candidate. After Kefauver upset Truman in the New Hampshire primary, Truman dropped out. Kefauver continued to win many primaries, but powerful people within the Democratic Party establishment simply thought he was too much of an outsider and therefore could not be trusted. At the Democratic convention, Kefauver was the early favorite, but eventually the party's bosses were able to convert enough people to support Adlai Stevenson, who finally was like, all right, fine, I'll run, sure. They nominated John Sparkman, a senator from Alabama, as his running mate. This was mostly because they wanted the former Dixiecrats back, as Sparkman was all right with racial segregation. The Republican Party had a four-way race for the nomination. Dwight Eisenhower, the World War II hero, had finally been persuaded to run for president, and he had three familiar opponents: Robert Taft, Earl Warren, and Harold Stassen. Because Warren and Stassen only won the primaries in their home states, really this was more of a two-way race between Eisenhower and Taft. The two had quite different foreign policies. Taft was a non-interventionist, criticizing the Korean War and calling for less involvement in foreign conflicts. Eisenhower was cool with the Truman Doctrine, seeing the spread of communism as a big threat that needed to be stopped whenever possible. Taft also criticized Truman for the welfare state that had ballooned since the New Deal, while Eisenhower was cool with keeping the welfare state. Eisenhower and Taft were neck and neck in the primary race. Going into the Republican convention, everyone knew it would be one of those two. But Taft's campaign got accused of silencing Eisenhower delegates from southern states. Whether true or not, this ended up hurting Taft. After a bitter and divided convention, Eisenhower barely came out as the winner, with Richard Nixon, a senator from California, as his running mate, who accused others of being crooks. And some accused him of being a crook, but he cleared everything up with a dramatic speech where he mentioned his dog Checkers. Eisenhower was an incredibly popular candidate thanks to being a war hero, and he drew huge crowds. He was way ahead in the polls throughout his campaign, and even had a catchy slogan, "I like Ike." Adlai Stevenson drew big crowds too, but he became famously known as an egghead, not only because of his baldness, but because of his tendency of being too intellectual and out of touch with ordinary people. Both campaigns used television ads quite a bit, marking a shift that many people actually had televisions now. Toward the end of his campaign, Eisenhower announced he would look at ending the Korean War and bringing the troops home. And here are the results. Dwight Eisenhower easily won, becoming the 34th president in American history. Promising to bring the troops home from Korea provided the final boost he needed to kick butt. He received 442 electoral votes and 55.2% of the popular vote. Adlai Stevenson finished with just 89 electoral votes and 44.3% of the popular vote. The Democrats had lost control of the executive branch for the first time in 20 years. Ike did well everywhere except the Deep South. Richard Nixon became the 36th vice president in American history. This was the first election in which a computer predicted the results, and for some reason, turnout soared compared to the last election. I'll see you for the next presidential election, buddy.